let's get to begin to do business. And this morning is a bit packed. There's going to be yet another interesting weekend of the show. And I am gladdened, but feel a huge burden every day when I get to learn of the people who just can't miss the show. Those who watch in the morning or listen in the morning and still do the repeats at night. Thank you all very much. Now, let me welcome my guests. Welcome my guests to the studio. And you already know my bias, but I'll not introduce her first. First, from my extreme right, is our regular panelist and editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper, Abdul Malik Kwekubako. Senior, good morning and welcome to Newsfile. Great, always good to have you. And when I meet very elderly people, senior citizens who have to say one thing or the other about the show, they always say hello to Kwekubako.
Thank you.
Great. Now, also is Dr. Jumaima Nunu. Okay, so today her designation changed. She is the acting director for the Center for Management Development at GIMPA. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you, Samson.
Also in the studio is lawyer Mike Okwe Jr. And he is with the NPP, speaks for the NPP. He's one of the communication officers of the New Patriotic Party. Good morning and welcome.
Thank you very much.
Great. And Dr. Edward Omane Buama, Deputy Communications Minister, and speaks for the President of the Republic. What?
Actual Communications Minister.
Actual Communications.
I'm the Deputy Communication Director.
Oh, I didn't even realize that happened.
Yes.
How could I do that? Forgive me.
So start
forgive me.
again.
Okay, so Dr. Edward Omane Buama, he's the Communications Minister of the Republic of Ghana and speaks for the President also. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Right. So we start with what's going on in America, and the people have voted, and yet they are pretending that they've been shocked. There are about 2 million signatures, 2 million signatures that are requesting that something different be done because they don't believe that Donald Trump is their president. There are protesters who have been protesting in over 25 cities of that country. Well, that was after the vote. And I gave you an interesting quote attributed to Donald Trump on the 6th of November, a day before elections or 2 days before elections in that country in 2012. He said, quote, "The Electoral College is a disaster for a democracy," unquote. Today, he's won the elections to be president of the most important office in the world, and he won it by the Electoral College. Let's briefly look at what is going on there and how do we appreciate it in our parts of the world. I'll start with you, Kweku.
Well. I was also shocked when it turned out that Mr. Trump had won the elections. It was a least thing I expected, So I was really shocked. I was also surprised at the tone of his victory speech. I was quite surprised. And but you see, my skepticism remained intact. I think he suffers a certain sincerity deficit relative to the things he had said prior to the elections. I find it difficult that today in America, such a great country, you can have Trump as president. Of course, he's president-elect, so we would show the appropriate respect. But I'm totally devastated. As for the issue about electoral college and popular vote, the first time I got to know about it was 1996. A group of Ghanaian journalists were sponsor to the U.S. to follow the Republican Party's convention.
Right.
Yes, and indeed when I came back, we were all supposed to write reports. The report I sent to the embassy was to the fact that I was really surprised at that kind of system. And I was educated on it. That has been their system. Yeah. What I don't like, let me be honest, is the protests that are underway. Even though sentimentally I appreciate where the protesters are coming from. I think that in terms of the American system, they ought to accept the verdict and live with it for another 4 years. For you know, President Trump may do things that could cause some little problems for him. And if you want him out, you go through the due process, which could be a possible impeachment proceedings. Otherwise, you live with it till 4 years' time.
There's a professor who has accurately predicted the winner of the elections for decades now in the US. He predicted Trump will win, but he'll be impeached. You just said he may be impeached.
Yes, I wouldn't be surprised if, unless the system tames him. There are those with the school of thought that the system is such that it will tame him, you know. But prior to elections, I don't think he showed the requisite temperament to be a president of the United States in the modern setting. I have a little problem. He had problems with though people who are not white, and I'm sorry, I don't like racialism. But he had problems with people with Islamic orientation.
He's a white supremacist. He doesn't make apologies for that.
Yes, and I'm told the KKK is out there jubilating.
Yes, they're planning a celebration for him.
I thought they were virtually extinct. So here we are. You see, the sound bites from him, his campaign narrative had the potential of awakening a certain, you know, sentiment that we all thought was dead and gone.
This is a man who consistently complained of the media cabal against him, and consistently, and he was, I can say it was fair to have criticized the media in the way he did, that the media was outright against him.
Yes.
How did he survive it?
The agony he was going through was self-inflicted in the first place. He caused it, he provoked it, and it was legitimate. I understood that clearly, you know. And if it hadn't been for the electoral college system, I'm sure he would not be heading towards the White House, you know. But honestly, we just have to live with it. The world especially, the international community also must be looking at him critically and see how he goes about some of these things. I know about all the conspiracy theories and things that might have happened that eventually led to Clinton's defeat. But it's all post the fact. Here we are, saddled with a Trump presidency for the next 4 years. If it was just an American phenomenon, perhaps we would just say, forget it. But it has a global impact,
right,
because of the power that the U.S. wields in international relations.
Okay.
So we cannot underestimate.
Let's hear from Doc. He got 53% of white votes. He got 7% of African American votes. He got 20% of Latinos votes. On the other hand, Mrs. Clinton got 38% of white votes, as against his 53%. Mrs. Clinton got 86% of African American votes, as against his 7%. Mrs. Clinton got 65% of Latino votes, as against his 20%. And yet, he's president-elect.
Interesting stats. But this election went to show us that sometimes the data prior to the elections doesn't always flow consistently with what happens post-election. But it's interesting because I even looked more at the stats and looking at an angle, because people were quite surprised that more women didn't vote for Mrs. Clinton. And even when you look at, if you disaggregate the stats and you look at the women that voted for Mrs. Clinton as opposed to against her, it's quite interesting. I can't really explain it, but you'd find that the women with, let's say, a college or a university degree were more likely to vote for Mrs. Clinton as opposed to the women who didn't have. And there's various theories which I won't go into here, but I found that interesting. And even though Mrs. Clinton managed to get a seemingly high percentage of the minority votes, it wasn't nearly as much as what President Obama managed to get. I mean, he got, I think between like 93 or so percent of the African American vote and a much higher percentage of the Latino vote. So you don't know whether it was some kind of apathy or whether genuinely people did not support or did not like Mrs. Clinton as a candidate. And I think, personally for me, in terms of questions of the ability to do the job, the person who had the best credentials, experience, temperament, etc., for me it was clear it was Mrs. Clinton compared to the two. But I am not an American and I'm not a voter. So I was just sat back here and I was surprised but not shocked. And the difference is I thought, okay, this is strange, but the writings were on the wall if we'd looked much earlier. I mean, I came from the UK, we had Brexit, yeah? The same sentiments that were expressed in Brexit, you're talking about this whole go back to Great Britain and, you know, nationalism and, you know, they didn't have this slogan, but it was almost like make Britain great again and, you know, rule Britannia, we rule the waves. That kind of sentiment, and we want to be away from Europe because we're different. Yeah, they take from us and we don't give. It's the same kinds of sentiment that you find in the rhetoric of Trump and his supporters. And I do think to an extent now he's president-elect, the system might conform him, but it's unleashed something that he can't contain. Even if we look at the aftermath, yes, of what is happening, you know, you see horrible scenes of people from various marginalized or minority groups being attacked. I'm not saying that Donald Trump didn't go out and expressly tell people to go and do that, but those are the
CNN showed a video of these school kids in this school, white school kids who were touting, sort of teasing the blacks and shouting that Trump should build a wall.
Yes, and you should go home and saying all kinds of expletives and derogatory terms. But that's what it's unleashed, and that is a worrying thing, because we can say now, okay, the American institution, the government is very structured, so maybe you won't be able to do all he said, but still, the Pandora's box is open.
There's a lot of power in his hands.
Yes, but still there are the checks and balances there. However, even if he's managed to be contained, even if, and that's a big if, his supporters, those that followed him, might not be able to. And it's those ripple effects, those repercussions that we're all sitting with bated breath looking at how the US is going to deal with it. And that's what my concern is.
Mike, the people are getting arrested on the streets. It looks like an African elections. When the elections were about to happen, there were fears of violence. There were allegations of the votes having been rigged ahead of time by Trump himself.
Well, let me start by saying a very good morning to you for hosting us today. Good morning to Kweku, Jemima, and Omani. And of course, to the viewers and listeners as well. You have the dual participation.
I understand we are streaming live today on Facebook as well.
I see. So
if you're on DSTV,
so this is your first time.
You can also catch us on DSTV channel 421.
Fantastic. So yes, I nearly had a breakdown.
You did?
The morning after the election.
You're a Ghanaian.
I was shocked.
You're not American, are you?
Oh no, but you know, I know that if America sneezes, the whole world catches a cold. And so, whether we like it or not, this is something that the American election does affect the world.
Is that really true today, that if America
Oh, yes.
sneezes, the world catches cold?
Yes, it is.
Britain sneezed and America caught the cold.
It's a fact. I mean, even the tumbling dollar, whether we like it or not, will affect our economy today. I mean, America affects the world, especially Africa. And I adopted a strategy because I'm so used to these elections that I said, anybody who stays up all night, you're wasting your time. The trick is 11 o'clock, you go to bed.
Right.
By that time, they've just finished the last voting in America. Then you sleep and wake up at about 4. That's when the results start coming in. Anything between then is just commentary and people's opinions. It's a waste of everybody's time. So when I woke up at the time that mattered, or at the appointed hour, as they say in the Bible, I was watching, and to be honest, I thought speech is when a person stutters or stammers, but my eyes were stuttering. And they kept going, you know, staccato, staccato. I mean, really? I mean, Florida? And when Florida went,
Which channel were you watching?
more CNN,
Okay.
and then a bit of BBC. You know, but the CNN was getting too technical, so I was doing
So
more.
it's CNN that declared the results for you. You haven't heard of any election commission declaring the American election?
No, but they called it. You see, I always say that there's a difference.
They call it projection. They
Yes,
projected it.
and that is why I always keep.
No, but after them, have you heard any other official form of declaration?
Oh, well, I have because I'm in follow, but I know it's
go
been
ahead.
declared
Sorry.
officially. Yeah. Oh no, I know. It's a good conversation. Yeah, I know. It's a good. Oh no, it's a good one because I've actually dealt with this matter when I was with one of my favorite brothers on the other side earlier in the week, and I said, look, this is what happens. The media calls the election, but they don't declare, and we must learn the difference. I know that it's difficult to find call and declare in Ghana or in other languages, so it's difficult for people to digest it. But there's a big
Let's
difference.
keep back on the track.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's all in the general
You're welcome.
area.
You're welcome.
You brought it. So,
Yes, I did.
yes. So I was shocked that almost all the numbers that Mitt Romney got, Donald Trump got virtually the same or better. When it comes to, for example, white women, when it comes to Hispanic votes. I mean, Hispanics voted, if my memory serves me right, more at 29%. And Romney got 27. If you look at all the other factors, even blacks, and so on and so forth. So I asked myself that, did people listen to Donald Trump, or was he playing a different charade on the media, but maybe on the ground? His supporters were telling people things that resonated with them. Because if it were just a matter of the, NRA, racism, whatever, then we should have seen a surge in the Hispanic votes, a surge in the black votes, and then we know that, for example, places that Obama won, they would never now switch for Donald Trump, because
So he lost some of the key battlegrounds,
they,
right?
they basically they have voted for a black president, and now these same people are so racist that they vote against the woman who's saying we preserve. It wasn't about racism. There was something that Jemima said which was different this time. They made people who were ordinary look at a nationalistic issue. They looked at it, bring back America, give America back to us.
But tinted with racism.
Yes, but you see, the problem is that underneath it, the racists also took advantage. But what the general American, who also voted for Obama and therefore is not racist, resonated with this time was they made him feel nationalistic and that Hillary doesn't love America. This was the main dichotomy that changed it. But I'll tell you the most determinant factor, in my opinion. The most determinant factor was that about the same number, 59 to 60 million, who voted for Trump, also voted for Romney. The difference was that the numbers that Obama got, Hillary got almost 10 million less. So it simply means that the Democrats or those who supported or could have supported Hillary because they supported Obama, they took it for granted that she'll win.
Okay.
And so didn't turn up. Or they just couldn't be bothered enough.
Like the NPP said in the 2008 elections.
Well,
that the
you keep
supporters
bringing,
took things for granted.
you keep bringing things in, and then if I go that way, you tell me let's stick to this. So
okay.
I'll stick.
It's okay.
Let's
move on. Let's move on.
I'll stick to it. It's actually a warning.
Let's hear
Have you seen
Dr.
have you seen Ace and Comer's wall?
What's he saying?
Yes, he's saying something very advisory. He's saying that you did not turn up, and then when Brexit won, you are complaining. You did not turn up, and when Trump won, you are complaining. This time, turn up so that who you want, let me just paraphrase it, who you want to win, because it's not local politics, will win.
Okay.
So this is an advice to the voters out there, especially from a certain group.
Okay.
They don't like to vote. When they see the queue, then they go home and go and eat big breakfast and say, I'll come at lunch. And they never turn up. So they should turn up and vote.
All right. Okay.
I appreciate what you say.
Doc, there are those who say, look, the Democrats were losing touch with the ordinary people, and that's also generally not about the Democrats. Mrs. Clinton represented, as it were, they call them what candidates? The establishment candidates. And therefore, they didn't want anybody like that. They wanted somebody who had come out from the ordinary, from somewhere, and just joined them, who could understand their feelings a lot more. Mrs. Clinton says, I'm for abortion on demand. Donald Trump says, no abortion. Those sort of things. Even got some of the evangelicals support Donald Trump heavily, who felt that, look, we are Christians, this is what we want. Let's help the guy to bring back our beliefs.
Good morning once again to you and to the cherished listeners and viewers. I think that almost everybody I know, except about one or two people. One is Uncle Kweku's very good brother, and he's very much on the left side. And I'm sure Kweku knows who I'm talking about. Almost everybody that I know was shocked. And I'm very sure America itself is beginning to ask questions. How come the world, at least if not all, is asking these questions? That is not to say that others are also not congratulating him, because I've read the president of Philippines and a certain category of world leaders who are also quite happy, and their congratulatory messages are flowing. And that in itself should let you appreciate what we are looking at as an international community.
There are more who are scared than those who are excited.
Let's face it, the world is now smaller than it used to be, not in terms of size. Because of ICT, because of globalization, we are much more intertwined. Our economies are linked. And so whatever happens in China, whatever happens in Britain, whatever happens in the US has effect not just on Africa, but several other continents. But I have gone back to look at the views and the writings of several of the campaign managers over the period, previously and now. President Obama's campaign manager in 2008, David Plouffe, strategists like David Axelrod, Karl Rove, President Bush's strategist, Matt Rhodes, Mitt Romney's campaign manager, and all. And there is one thing that is very clear, that the Clintons had lost touch with the people who actually made Mr. Clinton the president. And by that, I'm referring to a certain class of Americans. Fortunately or unfortunately, in this case, unfortunately for them, once a very popular couple who was very linked with the grassroots, after so many years, had climbed up there and so had metamorphosed into the elite club of the establishment, to the extent that those people down there, in terms of the social ladder, did not really relate very well. And the similarity can also be deduced from how Senator Obama came from nowhere, and everybody thought in 2008 Mrs. Clinton was going to clinch it. And Senator Obama came in and also appealed much more to the grassroots better than Mrs. Clinton did. And he was also able to mobilize a lot of the voters to vote. If you look at what happened in Iowa, even before the final register, the Des Moines register came, it was very clear that considering the demographics, the age range of the people who were coming out, campaigning and all, it was going to go in favor of Senator Obama at the time. So that also went against her. The similarity is that Donald Trump also, of course, very rich, but not as connected in terms of the establishment as Mrs. Clinton and the husband seem to be, also decided to play very much to the gallery. And I strongly believe that in the end, when people who were very deep in his campaign begin to write, we are going to see a lot of research playing a key role in some of the positions that he took. Because there were very absurd things that he said. Very, very absurd. And I was surprised to learn the number of Hispanics that still went out there to vote for them, even if they were legitimate citizens and all. How were they relating to their other citizens and all, Muslims and all that? And so events are unfolding. I'm very sure maximum about 12 months from now, we will begin to read the real inside stories from those who worked within it.
Right.
And we will get to appreciate how they managed to tap into the thinking of the Americans who I believe, share some of these sentiments, not all of them though, share some of these sentiments around the dinner table, and they tapped into that kind of sentiment. Right. As we sit here, like it or not, he is the president-elect of the U.S. Let's hope
by December 19, the Electoral College will meet. They'll put the results together and they'll do the official declaration and get it gazetted. And then in January, he's sworn in.
Let's hope that when he's sworn in, the checks and balances in every country will be able to regulate the excesses that he espoused during the campaign period. And the international community itself also has a way of exerting a certain kind of equilibrating factor.
Okay. And if you've been listening carefully, Dr. Wanigwa has been saying a few things, including whether we should wait and see whether he'll be able to deal with the excesses that he espoused. Those are very critical matters as far as campaigning is concerned, I think, for him. Now, this show...